So just to let you know, we are going to be recording the presentations. We won't be recording the Q&A afterwards. And we are running 2 webinars, and this is the first one on recruitment, and we've got to follow up one on retention next week. And we've done this in just recognition of the fact, really, that charities are talking about recruitment to us. It's a significant issue. It's definitely one of their current challenges, and we're hearing that through the conversations that we have with you and through your grant reporting. And I'm sure we've all seen it in terms of impacts within other sectors as well. So we recognise we're not going to be able to solve that problem within the next hour or so, but we're hoping that you'll leave the session with hopefully some useful tools and resources and some steps that you can take around your recruitment practice. So the way it's going to work this afternoon is that we're going to be hearing from 2 guest organisations, Roots HR, who are one of our enhanced partners. So hopefully you all know that the enhanced programme is our development support for organisations to develop their resilience. And secondly, from Sunrise Multicultural Project, to hear about their experiences of recruiting. And then we're going to have some time for Q&A. So please feel free to put any of your questions that you might have as we go in the chat, and we'll pick those up and field those to our guest speakers. If you want to send one anonymously, then please do that to Marie and myself. But also, you know, we do see this very much as a peer support session as well. So if you've got any tips or thoughts or suggestions about how you've gone about recruitment, what some of those challenges might be for you, or what you've heard from other organisations, it'd be really great if you could share those in the chat, and then we'll also be sending those round afterwards. So we just want to gather your thinking and experience as well. So I'd just like to introduce Roots HR to you. So I'm going to hand over in a second to Alison Smith, who is the Senior Lead Consultant and CEO of Roots HR. So Roots HR is a consultancy providing human resources services for social sector employees since 2009. They've been an enhanced partner for some years, and they work with our charities that we fund. You might have already worked with Alison and her team on a whole range of topics around HR, including reviewing HR policies and contracts, developing approaches to appraisals, 2Ping staff, and of course recruitment and retention. So I'm just going to pause now and hand over to Alison for the first presentation.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you. And yes, it's lovely to see so many people here today, and some of whom we may have worked with through the enhanced programme. As Claire said, I'm CEO and lead consultant of Roots HR. We're a community interest company, so we're a social enterprise, so a not-for-profit organisation ourselves. And through our social enterprise, we reinvest our profits into supporting the sector through the delivery of sort of free training and other useful information around HR that I'll just make some reference to towards the end of this session. So it's lovely to be here with you all today. Just in regards to the agenda, sorry Claire, I'm not sure if somebody's driving the slides. If I can move on to the next slide for me, please. So what I'm just going to talk about today is just really focusing on what are some of the current challenges that charities are sort of facing at the moment when it comes to sort of recruiting staff, talking a little bit about avoiding making the wrong decision in a recruitment situation, and then some sort of top tips for some smaller charities recruiting within the current marketplace. So we'll look at things like pay and benefits, flexibility, attracting candidates, and sort of merit-based selection. So I think we're starting with a quick poll. I don't know whether we've got the poll running at all today. So just a quick poll, just asking people if they could just indicate whether they have experienced any challenges filling vacancies in this current year. So just got yes, no vacancies to fill, or don't know. If we can just ask you to quickly fill out the poll, that would be great. I'll just give you a minute or so just to do that. I don't know if we can see the results. We've had everybody click on it. There we go. So 78% saying yes, they have experienced challenges filling vacancies in 2022. 4% very lucky saying no, 16% saying that haven't, and 2% saying don't know. So that's quite a high level of people attending the session today who've obviously experienced challenges. So I'm sure that potentially none of the information that I'm going to give to you at the moment at this point is going to be of a surprise. So the first quarter of 2022 saw a record number of vacancies in the UK. There were over 1 million vacancies in that first 3 months. And at the same time, we were experiencing record highs in terms of employment, meaning that there were fewer people within the UK that were actually looking for roles, and the highest level of job vacancies that we've had for quite some considerable time. This has created what's really sort of become known as a candidate market. So employers are really finding that it's very competitive. It's very difficult to recruit people because there are so many vacancies that are available. And obviously candidates may be applying for more than one vacancy. So you may also experience that during any recruitment process that you've got, you may see candidates withdrawing from the process because actually they're going through recruitment exercises with multiple organisations and potentially receiving offers and then withdrawing from your process. So it's been a very challenging sort of start to the year. The growth has started to slow in terms of the number of vacancies, but it's still a very challenging marketplace at the moment. And you're not alone in terms of saying, I think it was 78% saying that they'd experienced challenges. You're not alone in terms of that. Latest sort of CIPD, which is the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development Labour Market Outlook report, which was published in May, which sort of surveyed over 2,000 organisations in the UK, said that 74% of employers were planning to take on new employees in the next 3 months, and around 50% were finding it very hard to fill. But this was most common in healthcare, voluntary sector and education. So I don't think it's any surprise that there've been some challenges in regard to the actual recruitment of people, just given the number of vacancies and the fact that we've got fewer number of people who are actually looking for roles at the moment. If we could just move on to the next slide for me, please. One of the things that it's really, I guess, challenging at this point is there can be sort of the need to say, well, actually, we'll just recruit people, we'll just do the bums on seats. You know, if somebody's not quite good enough for the role, we'll just take them on because actually there's nobody else that's out there for us at the moment. And it is very tempting to do that. But I think what needs to be sort of factored into that is just some of the risks of making the wrong decisions and engaging somebody who doesn't actually meet the needs or can't meet the expectations that you have within that role. And typically these the factors that we'd look at here would be so time and cost. So if you think about sort of management time costs to recruit people, but also if we think about the induction process, getting somebody up to speed in their role, and the potential impact around service users. If it is, you know, that we've got sort of high turnover of staff who are relatively new starters. Some pre-COVID metrics, because obviously COVID sort of had an impact on recruitment, is that this sort of time to recruit people at a management level is typically around 12 weeks. And for a non-management level role is typically 8 weeks to actually recruit somebody and to get them on board. But then when we think about somebody becoming what we would think of as effective within their job role, you've got to add on probably at least another 12 weeks onto that. So you could be looking at sort of 24 weeks for you to recruit somebody, for them to induct them, and to them to get to a level of effectiveness within their job role. And obviously that is going to all of that time, that whole 24 weeks is going to incur a lot of management time and cost. And as I say, there could be pressure on colleagues, reputational impact, or impact on service users if we see a sort of a quick turnover of staff within that sort of first 24 weeks. So it's very tempting to consider, well, actually we'll recruit somebody who is not quite good enough into a role when it is a challenging market. But actually the cost of doing that in terms of potentially getting that wrong, the management time, the cost, the impact on service users can be quite significant. So although it's a challenging marketplace, we sort of do encourage people to try to make the right decisions and not necessarily look to get bums on seats in terms of recruiting people. So I think we've got just another quick poll here, which is just to ask people any changes that you may have made in a way that you might think might help you fill a vacancy in this year. So it can tick as many as are applicable. So if you've made any changes to advertise salaries for roles, employee benefits, if you've sought to upskill existing staff as opposed to going out to the external marketplace, if you've looked at offering perhaps apprenticeships, if you've done none of the above, or if you've had no vacancies to fill. So if you can just take some time and just, as I say, tick all of those that apply for you. And then once we've got the results, we'll have a look at those and see if there's any actions that people have taken to have a look to support their recruitment at this point. So I don't know if we've got the poll result that we can have a look at. So yeah, so quite a lot has been done. Again, we're looking at around 45% of respondents saying that they've looked at salaries for the role, around 20% saying that they've looked at the employee benefits, so the sort of package that's been offered, 51% looking at upskilling existing staff, 18% offering apprentices, and 18% doing sort of none of the above, and then the remainder having no vacancies to fill. So I think that's very sort of typical in terms of what organisations have been looking to do. What we've seen happening across the sector and across all sectors, I guess, at the moment, is organisations looking at pay, reward as a whole, this concept of sort of total reward, flexibility, upskilling existing staff, sort of looking to diversify where they're seeking to attract job candidates from, or simply doing nothing. So if we could just move on to the next slide, and then I'll come back to this. I'm just going to talk in a little bit more detail about pay, which is the first one. So obviously some external context about this, because not only are we in a sort of challenging recruitment market, but obviously we're all aware that we've got a cost of living crisis, as it's termed at the moment. And as said earlier, the CIPD Labour Market Outlook report was saying that 44% of respondents have sought to increase pay as a way of responding to recruitment challenges, which I think was very similar to the sort of poll results that we've just had. But obviously what we've got to bear in mind is the context that we're in at the moment. And a key challenge of that is inflation and cost of living. CPI was at 7.9% in May. Those increases typically due to housing, household costs, so our energy bills, transport, etc. And cost of living awards for existing staff, not only for, you know, outside of what we're doing to attract people to the organisation, aren't necessarily keeping up with inflation. They're currently around 3%. And many organisations are obviously sort of concerned about affordability or financial sustainability of increasing salaries sort of, you know, to that level of inflation, particularly when we hear that inflation could be increasing. So what are other things that organisations are seeking to do where it's not possible for them to go beyond a certain level in regards to pay, is to look at what are the other things that are attracting or attractive to people who are looking in the job market and who potentially, particularly within the social sector. So one of the things, we can just move on to the next slide, please, is looking at this concept of total reward, which is looking at how is the sort of the reward package for the employees within your organisation made up as a whole. And typically, you know, people will think of salary and they think of pay. And that, you know, at the bottom of this slide, we've got basic pay as being sort of the core, if you like, of a reward package. And that might include, you know, somebody's salary, any overtime or allowances that they receive. On top of that, employees will also typically receive some financial rewards. So that could be things such as, you know, pensions, employee benefits that might include things such as occupational sick pay, so something over and above statutory sick pay as an example. And then typically there's also maybe a range of non-financial rewards, and some of these are incredibly important to people. What we found through COVID is that, and sort of the sort of coming out of the restrictions that we had with COVID, is that there's a much greater sort of emphasis, I think, from candidate perspectives around the desire for flexibility in any job that they go for. And flexibility could be in terms of sort of how, who, where, when somebody undertakes work. So typically thinking about flexibility of their hours, when the hours can be worked, and if there's perhaps flexibility in terms of where they can work. And this concept of flexibility is proving to be very important. Now, it doesn't take away from the importance of sort of basic pay. And typically we look to say that pay should meet the needs that the individual has for their own circumstances. And when it does that, other factors in the employment proposition become more important. Obviously, that's very difficult when it's when you are in a challenging financial situation. But these aspects of non-financial rewards, so flexibility, learning and development, which obviously, you know, many of you have said some of the responses you've been taking is to look to upskill existing staff. That opportunity for learning and development and progression for your existing staff is fantastic and is a real way to attract and also retain staff. But also looking at employee well-being, again, this really come to the forefront through COVID, you know, and in COVID we saw a real sort of focus around mental health and mental health well-being. And I think what we're seeing now is a real focus around financial well-being and how can we support employees within our organisations to manage their finances, you know, the guidance and support that we can sort of provide to them. So these sort of different aspects, and we refer to this as total reward. So it's looking at the package as a whole. And I think it's considering what's affordable to the organisation to pay in terms of basic pay, what's the financial rewards that you can offer, and then what are some of those non-financial rewards that really can be a sort of a very attractive part of the employment proposition to candidates. So if we could move on to the next slide then, when it comes to sort of attracting candidates to the role, I mean, I guess what we'd say at the moment is it's probably best to try and cast your net as wide as possible, you know, looking to advertise for roles, and again, internally as well as externally. Again, thinking about upskilling and recruiting people from within your current workforce. Using your, sorry, that's my dog in the background, using your networks and your social media to attract people into the role as well. Your networks are incredibly valuable. And you know, you can use networks to cast a wider net and to sort of, you know, get your job adverts out to a much wider audience through any existing networks that you've got. Using platforms such as LinkedIn, refer a friend. These are schemes that sort of had a sort of a popularity a while ago and may have had somewhat of a decline for fears that they can perpetuate sort of existing workforce characteristics, so they don't help in terms of perhaps you know, creating a diverse or an inclusive workforce. But actually in times of recruitment challenges, it could be that having some kind of referral system from your existing employees could actually be very, very helpful and an additional source of candidates, but also potentially if there's a financial reward that's part of that refer a friend scheme, then potentially it can obviously create some benefits for the employees as well. Obviously, again, seeking to advertise within the communities in which you work, again, that's really from a diversity point of view excellent in terms of looking at reflecting back to the community that you work in, and using things such as apprentices or looking at returners to the workforce or older workers to see, again, just diversifying where you're actually going out to attract people. And then just next slide, please, which is just to think about once we've actually moved into and we've got a selection of candidates, this bit about trying to avoid making the wrong decision is really about thinking about the process that you apply to your recruitment and particularly the selection part of recruitment and selection. And it's what we term merit-based selection, which is really a criteria-based selection where you're looking to, through your selection process, so interviews and anything else that you may use, you're looking to test that the individual meets the specific criteria that's set out in the person specification for the role. So the job description, the person specification is really the cornerstone of your recruitment and selection practice. So it allows you to, once we've gone as far as and as wide as we can with the adverts for the role, to then look to from those people who've applied, funnel them through the shortlisting and also through the selection to actually test that they meet the person specifications for the role. There is quite a thing about, and I think it is a useful alternative, which is actually to look at strengths-based recruitment rather than merit-based recruitment. And strengths-based recruitment would be quite different. It's where actually the person may not meet the perhaps the person specification for the role in terms of their skill, their knowledge and their experience, but they might have the right sort of personal attributes and to undertake the role. So it may be that the organisation thinks that actually they would like to recruit somebody on that basis, and then the responsibilities with the employer to ensure that they give them the right training to have the right skills, knowledge and experience to deliver the role. So skills-based recruitment can be very helpful, but obviously it requires a lot of upfront planning, and it also needs a lot of time, and there may also be cost involved in terms of upskilling that person to be able to then deliver to the role. So I think if you've got the opportunity to do that, you can look at strengths-based recruitment, but obviously there could be a significant cost involved there for some organisations. So it may be that actually the approach of merit-based selection, where we're looking to recruit the person who best meets the person's specification for the role, is the better way to go, unless you've got the time and the money for the strengths-based assessment. And then my final slide, if we could just move on, is just to outline a number of free resources that are available from Roots. As I say, we are a social enterprise. So for any social sector employer, we have a range of toolkits that offer guidance, template documents and training on topics such as recruitment, selection. We also have a whole host of free fact sheets, and also any social sector employer can get up to an hour of free HR consultancy from us. So those are available to any social sector employer. So again, for any further information, I'd just say please do take a look at those. And that's all from me. So I think I shall hand back to Claire, and obviously look forward to hearing now from the charity partner and their experiences.
Hi everyone, it's Marie, the Regional Manager for South Central. This is just a quick reminder that everybody who is a charity partner has additional individual support, and this could be around HR. So if you wanted a bit more in-depth support from Roots or one of other providers, you could contact your Regional Manager to discuss it. Can we go on to the next slide, Callum? I'd like to introduce you to Assia and Karen, who are from Sunrise Multicultural Project based in Oxford, and they've kindly come to talk to us and about their challenges around recruitment and how they met this challenge. And I'll hand over to Assia and Karen.
Hi, thank you, Marie. My name's Assia. I'm the project manager for Sunrise Multicultural Project. I've been in the role for about 16 years. And just going back to the last presentation, it really relates to us and all the stuff that's been put on there as well. Just want to start with introducing Karen, who will introduce herself to you as well.
Thank you, Ash. My name is Karen, as you can see from the slide, and I've been involved with Sunrise actually since the beginning, I'm afraid, 36 years, and my son was 2. And my role now is, I come in from an independent background now, and I help with fundraising and strategic planning and the evaluation work. And thank you very much for having us on this afternoon. Do you want me to start? Shall I start, Ash?
It's entirely up to you. You can do.
Yeah, I'll start off. Okay, so the first slide, as you see, we've been running for a long time. We became a charity after about the first 15 years and a CIO last year. Originally, we were asked, I was actually teaching ESOL in those days up in North Oxfordshire, and we were asked through a colleague in social services to set up an organisation for and run by the local Bama community, who are mainly Pakistani Muslim heritage. And we started off purely with children's work, with holiday schemes mainly, and that developed into Saturday clubs, and that from that developed the adult work, and from that has developed our domestic abuse work. We'll take you through that a bit later on. Next slide, Callum, please. Thank you very much. The aims of our project, and also one of our stratlines, is lighting up lives, and we're all about empowerment, which I know all of you, looking at you from the organisations you come from, know the importance of this one. Empowering young people and families to reach their full potential. It's actually at work, at home, in school, and within the community. And see ourselves very much as taking a whole family approach. So we know that our original work was with young people, but we know that in order for young people to reach their full potential in life generally, we also need to be working with families, with adults. And my background actually is in community education, intergenerational family learning. Thank you very much. Next one. I think you're going to talk about this one, Ash. Yeah, brilliant.
Hi. So the method of engagement with our charity obviously is an open door service. So we work with the local community in Banbury and who are aware of us and use majority of our services. We work in the deprivation wards mainly, 2 of the top deprivation wards in Banbury. And we run fun activities. For example, we do celebrations of different festivals. So we like to have make every community aware of integration and celebrations. We do a lot of trips and outings, which some of the vulnerable families that we support don't have an opportunity to do outside of their normal regular lives. So we organise them by booking coaches and taking to seasides or theme parks. Most of the groups, we have regular participation, and we get the same families. Since I've joined the projects 16 years ago, I've seen a 5-year-old integrate and now become sort of like a teenager, gone to uni, and then sort of like get a career, and that you see that person change through the whole process. And we find that a lot with our community in Banbury, is they seem to stay with us for a very long time because they built that trust in the community. A lot of the adult classes that we run, predominantly a lot of the families that we support have very little or none English. So we do a lot of informal learning by running ESOL classes for them in partnership with the college, who provide us with tutors. And with our specialist work, we have an open door service, and even within the adult programs, we have people will approach us with issues and problems to us. So it could be something basic, like they've had some their young person has had some racial abuse at school. How do they tackle that? How can they support that young person? And they'll come to us and say, could you write a letter? So what's the process at school? How do we do that? Because they have very little knowledge about it. And same with domestic abuse. We'll have somebody come approach us and just talk a little bit about, oh, they're not, they find this space very important. This is the only space they get to be themselves and be able to share their issues and concerns with others. And then as they rebuild that trust with us through the groups, then they are able to share any difficulties or issues with us through any issues around domestic abuse, sexual abuse. I work predominantly around the specialist work. We work closely with Oxfordshire County Council, who are our main statutory body, social services, and also the NHS with any referrals they may have from the South Asian community. Obviously, language is a massive barrier for those statutory organisations, and they tend to approach us by asking us to support them through cultural need and understanding the family cycle around culture and how it works, because it's so vital to have that knowledge to be able to support a victim of domestic abuse. At the moment, we're also delivering cultural awareness training out. We're planning to deliver that out to the police, social services, so they're aware of that. But we do find that a lot of the statutory organisations like Thames Valley Police, Social Services, NHS approach us for various issues around culture and how the family dynamics works with the victim or victim's survivor from domestic abuse. So that's how we use the method of engagement. It could be anything that could pop in. Some of the ladies would use, because we're located in where there's a few shops, some of the ladies will come abroad and just say to their families, or we're just going to the shop to get some milk, and we'll pop into the centre and speak to us about any issues they may have at home or any issues with their families. We have got a quite strong supportive group of employees who have got different backgrounds and speak a few languages, which is really, really good for the beneficiaries we support. So that's just giving you methods of engagement. The activities we run with Sunrise are obviously, Karen's mentioned that, is we do Saturday clubs for young people. The reason behind the Saturdays clubs came about was because most of the young people and families we support are from the Muslim heritage background. They tend to go school during the day, and then in the evenings they go to either Arabic or madrasa classes. So they don't get that free time to be themselves and to be able to have, outside of those busyness, those educational stuff, to be themselves. So the Saturday clubs came about for those young people. And the ages we support are from the age of 5 to 12. And we've got 2 centres where they're run, and we've got approximately just under 100 young people who attend altogether.
Actually, between I'm just going to jump in, because I know we're getting very short of time. And I think probably Marie sending me messages saying, can we move on to the recruitment, which I think people would really like to talk about. Can we go on to the next slide again, Callum? Brilliant. So this was really sort of what happened next, really, when we suddenly got this huge increase in domestic abuse, wasn't it? Do you want to take it on from there, Assia, and how we
of course,
had our problem with recruitment?
Yeah, so we had some funding from the Police Crime Commissioner, MOJ, to run an IDVA programme where we had to recruit an IDVA, somebody who had experience with domestic abuse. And we advertised for a good couple of months, maybe about 6 months, and we weren't successful. We did have candidates, but the candidates didn't have the relevant skills to be able to do the role. So we didn't know what to do. So I was a bit reluctant to go back to the funder, thinking that the funder may say to us that it's not working, you know, we would like our money back. But I thought to myself, it's not going to work. So I do need to speak to the funder and make them aware of what's happened. So we thought we'd give it one more try and re-advertise again. So we advertised it twice now. And again, we didn't get many candidates this time, just to give it one last shot. And then I had a word with a few people and came to the decision that we need to have a conversation with the funder. But I wanted, one of the thoughts that came into with the struggle of finding native worker who was from the Bama community was to run a traineeship program through those candidates that applied that were very strong, to offer them a traineeship with the funding that we got. And I wanted to make that into a proposal before I went to the funder, to make them aware that I've got something in the obviously, I'm not successful in recruiting the eligible worker, but I've got this proposal. Would you be willing to support this? So I went back to the funder. We had a conversation online, and the funder was quite supportive and loved the idea of the program running a traineeship to train people who'd applied for the job and give them the skills and abilities to become IDVA workers for our project, which was very great. I didn't think they would accept that, but they did. So we offered 4 interviewees a traineeship program to see if they would consider it. Obviously, I had a brief conversation with them before. They all agreed and were willing and upfront to be able to do a 6-month program, and then we'd also offer them an interview for the job, for the IDVA work at the end of it. That program's been running. It's coming to the end on the 24th of July. It's been very, very, very successful. And one of the trainees has got a job. Obviously, we gave them interview skills, etc. And they've upskilled themselves, because that's the passion they had. That's the line of work they wanted to go in. One trainee has ended up with a job with our local A2 Dominion, and the other 3 are still studying with us to the end of, and we're at the moment doing placements and stuff with them, so they get a bit of an idea. And then they will be going for an interview process with us in August, and one of them would get a job with us potentially, and we are looking for more funding to be able to keep 2 of them. If we are successful, then hopefully we will be able to recruit 2 of those trainees to become workers for us, and that's how we supported it. Next slide. So what did we learn? So obviously we were gonna get the right candidate, and obviously I was scared of going back to the funder, but you know, I was quite shocked that they supported the idea, giving that proposal of finding a solution to the answers of a question that I was questioning myself was brilliant, and having a plan ready before I spoke to the funder was really good, and talking it through with them by detail and stuff, and then having to write it all up and send it to them. So then the need of the project has, you know, gone away with us, because now we are able to recruit to potential trained up trainees who we didn't have from the start of the program. And thank you very much for listening, and that's the end of the presentation.